What up? What up? Welcome back, guys. Welcome back to the Sleuth Intuition channel. And I'm your host, Patrick Vallejos, broadcasting to the world live from Phoenix, Arizona. Today we will be discussing the Abby and Libby case, also known as the Delphi murders. Title of today's live stream: Any Way You Slice It. So let's go to Julia Burns' question. What about an assisted lone wolf? Any way you slice it, Julia.
Excellent.
I want to welcome everybody in. Hopefully you can hear me okay. Brett Decker, Piper's Dream, Metal Mama Michelle, Olivia, Jill Moser, Stephanie, Tam B, Olivia 2, CJK, Pitbull Mom, Cindy. Who am I missing? Doris, what's up? Lisa. Of course, Julia. Caricature, good to see you. BD Hubbard, welcome in. The way I look at it, no matter what happened at that bridge that day, and whoever killed Abby and Libby, Richard Allen is involved. What's up, David Lowry? Welcome in. Thank you. Thanks for hanging out and joining us. I appreciate that. Good to see you, Metal. Hiawatha, what's up? Good to see you, Brett. Julie says lone wolf with assistance is what I meant, whether that be online or in person. Yep, any way you slice it. Any way you slice it, Richard Allen is part of that situation because of that bullet. So today we're going to focus in on 2 points. Now I went out and put my feelers out to the Richard Allen fan club. Looks like their 2 main concerns are that if these third party suspects are involved, that Richard Allen cannot be involved because there's no connection between Richard Allen and any of these third party suspects. How they know that, I don't know. But that seems to be the consensus over there. And then the other thing is a conspiracy about the chain of custody on the bullet. They say that it's questionable. So we're going to focus in on that today. We're going to talk a lot about the chain of custody, how powerful that tool mark evidence is, and why it will prove that Richard Allen was there that day, or at least his gun was, or somebody who's connected to Richard Allen who had one of his bullets was there that day. So I think we'll open up the discussion now. And I think personally, I would like to start with this here. So let me share my screen. I guess we can start with the chain of custody. All righty. So this is a conversation between Rick Allen and Jerry Holman. Rick Allen says, I'm telling you that there is no way that a bullet from my gun was used in these murders. Well, how would you know that? Were you there? Obviously, he's just playing dumb. He knows damn well there was no gun used other than to force the girls down the hill. Jerry Holman says, I'm telling you that we've had this fucking round on February 14th, 2017. So they're going to talk about corrosion. They're going to talk about this, blah, they want to write a fairy tale about this bullet, right? Richard Allen can't be guilty, but the bullet, it's a huge conspiracy. Richard Allen, good, bullet, bad. It's that simple. He says it's been secured in a laboratory and we tested other guns. And we know that that's a fact. And look, they want to go ahead and back up this guy. They have solid evidence. There's a reason he's in jail, and it's this bullet right here. They're not saying we know you're the killer. That's not what they're saying. They even told the public that they believe others are involved. So that could fit into this whole ritualistic theory. Like I said, any way you slice it. So just like Rick Allen, his fan club says, you could have taken it from somewhere else then, because it's not possible. Holman, I did not take it from somewhere else. It was logged in. Chain of custody. It was taken. It was photographed. You think we took a round and threw it down by the dead girl's foot? This ain't fucking TV. This is realistic. And that's the same response I have for these folks. Because I just don't understand. How can, if you believe that there was some kind of ritualistic murder, which it could be, I don't know. I'm not an expert. I don't see any runes. In Libby's tree, I don't see an F. I see a palm print. And a lot of experts agree with me. So with all this evidence pointing at Rick Allen, why exclude him from this ritual? Why can't he play a part in it? Why are they so hell-bent on getting him off of this murder? I don't understand that. Why can't he be involved in this ritual? Why can't his role be forcing the girls down into the area where they're going to conduct the ritual, or down to, where other people can help, quote unquote, kidnap these girls? Why is that off the table? That shit just does not, it baffles me. With all the evidence they have against Richard Allen. And also they state that they can't connect Richard Allen to these third-party suspects. Well, you can't even connect these third-party suspects to the Monon High Bridge Trail that day. But yet you're not concerned about that. We couldn't connect Richard Allen to the trails that day without him admitting it. If he didn't admit that, how else are we going to do that? How else are we going to know that he frequented those trails? Well, because he told us. We didn't know that. So if he had anything to do with the ritualistic murder, he's going to have to tell us that. So once again, any way that you slice this, any theory that you bring forward, he's involved. Holman says, I'm telling you that we've had this round on February 14th, 2017. That means it's been there for probably less than a day. Less than 24 hours that bullet was sitting there. There's no corrosion. There's nothing. There's none of that shit. It came directly from his magazine into his pistol and bounced right off the ejector onto the ground. Now, how that happened, only he can tell us. Is he part of a ritualistic murder? Only he can tell us that. But to exclude him, knowing damn well that this is the one piece that they've been looking for since 2017, that's very irresponsible. Stephanie. Oh, are you referring to the live stream we had earlier with Stephen Stearns? Thank you, David. Excellent. Welcome in, Mary C. So that's how silly they sound, just like Rick. You could have taken it from somewhere else then, because it's not possible. Analysts explain it. You can't get past this. So they're not telling Richard Allen, we know that you're the killer. They're not saying we know you're a lone wolf. We know that you went out there uh, with the intentions of sexual assault. And you found two girls on the end of that trail, on the end of that bridge, and you couldn't resist. They're not saying that at all. They're saying we know that you are involved in this. Okay. So to me, it's that simple. Any way you slice it, Richard Allen is 100% involved because his bullet is at the crime scene. Even the defense team's own experts agree with that it matches his weapon. There's no disputing that. Now, the only way to get around it, right, is the chain of custody. Oh, it's a conspiracy. Okay. So where's the evidence for that? So Richard Allen's innocent, Jerry Holman guilty of committing a crime, and Brad Holder, Patrick Westfall, Elvis Fields, and what's the other guy? Johnny Messer. They're guilty, right? There's no proof they were there that day. There's no proof that we're even looking at ruins. Even though I think it is extremely interesting, the positioning of the bodies and all of that, I think you could go there with it. Even with that being said, it does not exclude Richard Allen. Oh, well, his DNA is not there. Yeah, I agree with that. I think it's possible he went through great lengths to ensure that. But for him to be involved, I don't think his DNA needs to be anywhere near that crime scene. Do I believe that he was a lone wolf? Yes. And that he washed the DNA off the best he could? Yes. Could I be wrong? Absolutely. And we've said this from the beginning that Richard Allen brought forward the whole Odinism stuff. This could be his way of slow leaking his confession and implicating others. So why exclude Richard Allen with all of this information? Why not just say, okay, yeah, Richard Allen could be involved in this ritualistic killing? Like, why is that so hard to accept? Knowing damn well that we know he was there that day. He has no alibi. There's witnesses who say they saw him and he saw them. And now the bullet ties him directly to the crime scene. Why try to explain that away? Oh, well, it's the chain of custody. That's why.
What is the chain of custody in CSI?
When you go to court as a forensic scientist,
Hold on. Getting ahead of myself here.
What is the chain of custody in CSI?
when you go to court as a forensic scientist, one of the things that you're almost always confronted with is the issue of chain of custody. Many of the participants in the court case don't have much of a background in science, but they do have thorough knowledge about this concept of chain of custody. How do you know the evidence that you're testifying about? How do you know that the evidence that was examined in the crime lab was the item that actually was collected at the crime scene? It has to be documented. The flow of the evidence from the scene to the lab to the courtroom must be documented. It's basically chain of custody means accountability, being able to know where that evidence was at all times from the moment it was found to the moment it's being testified to, and at the same time knowing that it wasn't contaminated, and knowing that its integrity was not impugned in any sort of a way.
Okay, now we're going to look at how a defense team will attempt to break the chain of custody. So just bear with me a moment. I got to pull up my bookmarks here. All righty. Chain of custody breached. An overview. Let me catch up on the chat real quick. You guys are going a million miles per second. All his confessions, too, they are pretty detailed information for someone who wasn't involved, 100% involved in some way. I haven't seen the confessions. I can't make that statement. What's up, Anthony? Yeah, if no DNA, that's definitely puzzling to me. It's not to me. It's not to me, considering that he spent over an hour and a half with the girls, and we know that they crossed that creek. For whatever reason, they crossed the creek. And this was before they were attacked. That's what the evidence is telling us. So to see that they were undressed and redressed, and to see Libby's clothing in that water in a pile like that, tells me that it's there for a reason. And if we listen to serial killers like Joel Rifkin and his explanation of the Long Island serial killer, he says it's not a mistake that those victims were found near water, because that's what he did himself. He used it to hide evidence. Yep, we've seen the crime scene photos. He washed off the evidence. That's what he was doing for an hour and a half. He was undressing and redressing the girls after running it through the water, and most likely doing his best to scrub it away. And the reason the crime scene is the way it is because he was interrupted. It's unfinished. Maybe the positioning of the bodies mean everything and the sticks mean nothing. But any way you slice it, Richard Allen is involved, one way or the other. What's up, Vertigo? Olivia 2, Hather's Mirror. Good to see everybody. Mike Hunt. Richard Allen's Confessions, where he talks about using the box cutter. Yep. But we just don't know. We don't know what weapon was used. I feel like Richard Allen was trying to give create the, he was trying to make the judge feel like he was incompetent. So he might have been giving false confessions on purpose. Kind of like what he did with Holman. My gun wasn't used in that murder, knowing damn well he never fired a shot, right? So if he's eating feces and drinking toilet water, trying to look like he's crazy, he may be confessing as if he's being coerced or under duress. And it's psychosis that's causing these confessions. And he may be confessing to things that had nothing to do with the crime. I'm just saying, what if? They could be extremely detailed and specific to the crime scene as well. So I don't want to dismiss that. I'm just saying I don't want our bias I don't want to put on the blinders. But just because we're biased doesn't mean that we're wrong, right? So don't get it confused. I just don't want to put on the blinders with that. Yep, I did see that too as well, Hiawatha. That was posted in the Discord earlier today. Miranda Lee, welcome in. Pitbull Mom, I don't know if I got you. Welcome. Regis, don't know. Could be anybody. We had somebody that hacked into Libby's Twitter account. Also around the same time. So thank you. Scrub report coming out by Hather's Mirror, 113 in chat. So if you guys could please hit the like button. Go share this video so we can get other people involved in the convo. Good to see you, CJK. Do we know that the second bra on Abby was Libby's? I think it's safe to assume. Yeah, I think it's safe to assume that. And I've heard from multiple women that when they were that age, they would wear multiple bras. But I think it's safe to assume that yes. And I don't think Richard Allen cared. It was important that they were dressed. The reason he killed the girls was to conceal the fact that he committed a sexual assault. So it was very important that they were not undressed when they were found. And if he wasn't interrupted, I believe Libby would have been dressed as well. And the positioning of her body would have been completely different. But now that everybody's trying to tie in this ritualistic murder, it really doesn't matter what position their bodies were in. They're going to find something out there, right? If they keep looking and looking, if they see some Odinist doing that position, oh, look, it's undeniable. And it really doesn't matter what position they're in. They're going to find something. Good to see you, Anna. Yeah, Regis is accurate here. I'm very open to thinking Richard Allen is totally guilty, but I'm also open to thinking Richard Allen was falsely incriminated. Exactly. If you're going to doctor the chain of custody or you're going to manipulate evidence, that is a crime. But we have evidence that Richard Allen is involved in this crime. Real evidence. So if you have evidence that they're over here manipulating and planting evidence and stuff like that, yeah, I'm all for that. Fuck that shit. Telling you, I'm not here as a pro prosecution, pro law enforcement. I have my stories, you guys. I'm a kid from the streets. I have my reasons to not trust police. But you need evidence. We have to follow the evidence. Just like with these third-party suspects, what evidence is there? It's not even circumstantial. Circumstantial evidence is Richard Allen saying he was on the trails that day. The closest circumstantial evidence or connection is the fact that Libby was dating the Logan Holder kid. Other than that, you can't put anybody on the trails that day. They don't even have circumstantial evidence. Saying that Brad Holder had a bunch of runes on his Facebook, that's not even circumstantial evidence. Especially when you can't prove without a doubt that that's what we're seeing at the crime scene. So they don't even have that. So we're following the evidence. Richard Allen says he was there that day. He tried to conceal that fact. Right? And now the one piece that they've been looking for over 6 years, they found a matching gun to the bullet that was found in between the girls. That's what I believe, Mike. That's what I believe. I agree with that too, Regis. If Richard Allen did actually supply info that only the killer would know. Yeah, for instance, the box cutter. I mean, for all we know, they found serrated blades. Good to see you, Sabrosa. He's going to be in solitary confinement for the rest of his life for his own safety. I don't know about that. But he won't be in Gen Pop, that's for sure. Welcome in, Amy Lee. It's so hard to believe he acted alone, to think he has a daughter. I mean, Israel Keys had a daughter. When did the prosecution say that? Send that to me if you could. I'm one of those people, I'll believe it when I see it. It's members only, Miranda. Yep, Libby's Twitter account was hacked as well. Something about the little bighorn. Can't remember. And then it was hacked again by somebody overseas. But originally it was hacked right around the same time that Johnny Boy Facebook was hacked. So her account was actually hacked twice. But most Twitter accounts, they do get hacked if they just kind of sit there with no activity. But this was different. This was early on and it was in English. After that, it was in like Arabic or something like that. Yeah, it could be, Dave, And either way, we don't have to understand why he did it or why he's involved. We just know that his bullet was found there at the location. We know that it is solid evidence. It's incriminating evidence. It's the very reason that he's locked up in prison right now, and most likely the reason why he'll spend the rest of his life behind bars. So to act like that doesn't matter and to say, oh, well, the chain of custody, or to kind of explain that away, it's irresponsible. Thank you, sub. Sees through. What's up? The only thing those sticks have in common is they were covering the wounds on both girls. I'll agree with that. He did not want to look at what he had done. It was like he didn't want others to see what he had done. Copper Horse, good to see you. Hooking it up with some memberships. Thank you so much. Well, if you just got a membership, make sure you thank Copper Horse. It's very thoughtful of you. Anthony says, I listened to the girl that worked at Walmart with Rick 10 years ago. That part where it says, it's not like I'm going to kidnap you, definitely sticks with his thoughts. Yeah, that is a little bit creepy. I wonder if he was thinking about it. Mike says, did Richard Allen's son-in-law and daughter turn in Richard Allen? I don't know. I would definitely applaud them if they did. And if they found this lost tip, whoever's idea it was to look at everything with a capital E, kudos. Yeah, I'm curious, David. Anna says, I disagree that the offender was trying to really cover up the crime. Libby was left wholly exposed. Apparently no attempt to even cover the most private areas. No, he was trying to. He had just finished, in my opinion, redressing Abby. Right? Now she's fully clothed. And now it's on to victim number 2. He's cleaning, he's scrubbing, getting ready to do what he did with Abby. He's going to go do with Libby. He doesn't want them to be found undressed. He wants no signs of a sexual assault. But here comes Brad Weber driving up the private drive and he gets home at 3:45. I mean, the timeline matches perfectly with that. So he was already nervous about Cheyenne and her Subaru crew up there on the bridge, but they can't see him. He's good to go. But on that private drive, all you got to do is just happen to look out there and you can see. All right. If the chain of custody is broken, things can get complicated. Let's say someone was in a car accident and the police took his blood to check if he was drunk driving. Now, if the blood sample gets mixed up or labeled wrong in the lab, the evidence might not be allowed in court. Evidence can also be thrown out if it ends up in the wrong hands during the investigation, it's stored improperly during the investigation, it's documented correctly. If it isn't documented correctly. Now, we haven't heard anything like that. So when you ask the Richard Allen fan club, why can't you support the theory that Richard Allen is involved in this ritualistic murder? Since that's what the theory that's most popular with them. And why? Because they can't think for themselves. They're going to listen to a group of people whose sole purpose is to point the finger away from their client. I mean, it's just so strange. You're not supposed to actually go look. And we know that third-party suspects sometimes are responsible, but you need evidence for that. Right now, the evidence points at Richard Allen. So I don't care if you support a ritualistic theory. I don't care if you support a lone wolf. And I don't care if you support the Keegan Kline and his dad being involved. Because any way you slice it, Richard Allen is smack dab in the middle of it. And if you want answers, they're going to come from him. You want to know why those bodies were positioned the way they were? That information will come directly from him. Why? Because they know he's involved. Doesn't take a genius. Just some experts. What's up, 2007? Welcome in. Matthew, welcome in. Hi, Walt. This is, I believe Alan's motive for participation was money. Could be. Whatever it was, only he can tell us. Fig Solves, good to see you, my friend. Welcome in. All right, shout out to everybody who got hooked up. Thanks again, Copper. David Lowry, looks like Anthony France. Shane. It's awesome. The DA, and there were non-secular things at the crime scene. Timmy, welcome. Duchess. Yeah, that was listed in an article, and I had it on an old video. But I think it may have been a retraction. There you go, Miranda. You ask and you shall receive. It's all good, Mike. Hather says, I feel like others were involved. That would have been addressed by now. Well, I think they're always open to that. And like I said, if there were others involved and the evidence doesn't suggest it, you know what I mean? But if there were, Richard Allen will be the one to tell us or to tell them. It would be more of a retraction, Duchess. a misquoted. Um, he may have been misquoted. Shelby Woo Woo, another one. You're welcome. Thank you, Copper. Glad to have all you guys. Good to see you, Daisy. All right. What happens when the chain of custody is broken? Suppression of evidence. When the chain of custody is broken, a big problem is the suppression of evidence. This means the proof can't be shown in court or considered by the judge and jury. It's like saying, sorry, we can't use this evidence because we can't be sure it's reliable. Imagine you had a photo from a security camera showing something important in your case, but if the police mix up the photo or don't take care of it properly, the judge might say it can't be used. So a broken chain of custody can mess up a case by making key evidence useless in court. They are not going to take that chance. Nothing will stop them, Stephanie. Logical fallacy. They swim in that shit. Can't step outside without your coat on and expect to. You have a 100% chance of getting a cold. Yeah, it could have triggered him. Dutch is saying him being misquoted makes sense. I don't think he has a reason to lie about using those words. Yeah, and I agree. And I think it was just a retraction. That's why it's hard to find now. Said there were no non-secular items at the crime scene. What about the detective in Kentucky who thought the murders of the elderly couple may be connected? Stevenson case? Well, there was a lot of similarities. You had the moving of the bodies, you had the staging of the crime scene, and you had the killer spending an unnecessary amount of time with the victims. And I'm sure there was a few other things they wanted to check out. Yep. Lack of God to me equals hell. Hell on earth. Destruction of the family. David, I think a good example of that sleuth would be the supposed marathon gas station video and them blaming the FBI. But FBI said they logged it correctly. Probably wouldn't be admissible. Well, you're getting two things mixed up. You're getting the lost tip narrative and the corrupted hard drive from the marathon. And I don't know if the corrupted hard drive is their fault. Usually they have technicians who work on that. But yeah, the FBI was blamed for filing Richard Allen's tip incorrectly. They denied that, but they accepted the fact that the hard drive was corrupted. What's up, Lala? Yep, he tried to undo what he had done. Or he tried to cover it up. What's up, Frank? Welcome in, Sean. After Richard Allen was arrested, all the other theories went away. And things about the crime scene. Could it be everyone now has tunnel vision? Yes. 100%. Hey, Humanimal. I don't think Coy would do that. Okay, let's continue on here. Inadmissibility of evidence. When the chain of custody is messed up, the evidence might be called inadmissible. This means it can't be used in court against the person being accused. For example, think of a situation where the police collect a key piece of evidence like DNA from the crime scene. Lack of credibility in court. The chain of custody is like a trust stamp on evidence. If it's broken, the evidence trustworthiness is questioned. In court, the side presenting the evidence, usually the prosecution, might struggle to make the judge and jury believe in its reliability. Potential dismissal or reduced charges. If a critical piece of evidence becomes unusable because of the chain of custody mistake, the whole case could fall apart. And that's exactly what would happen here. If for whatever reason there was an issue with the chain of custody, that's it. Their smokeless smoking gun is now useless. Possibly leading to the case being dropped or the charges lessened. In simple terms, if the evidence isn't strong enough, the case isn't as likely to stand, and the person on trial might face fewer or no charges. So this whole conspiracy theory and ignoring the bullet, and the reason for ignoring it, stating that the chain of custody on the bullet is questionable, is ridiculous. How are you going to ignore the only real evidence in this case? Everything else is circumstantial. There's nothing tying any of these third-party suspects to the trails that day. Nothing. Even one of those people has an alibi. What's Richard Allen's alibi? Yet the defense team continues and continues, and people in the public eat it up. Why? Why do people eat that shit up? Impact on law enforcement's credibility. Any discrepancies in the chain of custody not only hurt the cast, but also put a question mark on the process. Trust in investigations is vital for the justice system, and any mistakes in the chain of custody can make people question that trust. This doubt could affect how the public sees and believes in law enforcement, impacting their confidence in the system. Okay, so let me pull this up one more time if you guys are just joining us. Right? Anybody supporting Richard Allen will look right over this. Rick Allen says, I'm telling you that there is no way that bullet from my gun was used in these murders. Well, your gun was used. Holman says, and I'm telling you, we had this round on February 14th. So this round isn't going to have corrosion. It's not going to be rusty. It's going to go from Richard Allen's magazine into his gun, bounce off the ejector and onto the ground less than 24 hours before they find it. To ignore that, I just don't get it. You're going to ignore the one actual piece of evidence tying somebody to this crime. It baffles me. What's up, criminality? CJK Coy Cox. That's from the Stevenson case. He's the lead investigator. He's the guy that came and visited with somebody in Indiana that could be connected to the Delphi case and his case. But they didn't find any connection. Okay. So I want to extend this out to any of you out there in the Richard Allen fan club. If this was a ritualistic killing, and the only reason that you won't accept Richard Allen being a part of it is because there's no connection, what makes you think you should see a connection? Why would we know about any connection? We didn't even know Richard Allen was on the trails that day. We wouldn't have even known that he frequented the trails if he wouldn't have told us. So why is it hard, why is it so easy to ignore this bullet evidence, but yet accepting the fact that there was a huge ritual down there? How is it that you can just slurp that right up like soup? I mean, it just blows my mind. So those were the two conflicts there that I found to why people are fighting for Richard Allen. They believe that there is an issue with the chain of custody and that there's no connection between Richard Allen and these third-party suspects. I'm baffled. Okay. Also, I want to talk about, let's see, this is from National Library of Medicine. They're talking about tool marks, forensic firearm tool marks, and forensic firearm examiners. Accuracy of comparison decisions by forensic firearm examiners. So the black box study assessed that the performance of forensic firearm examiners in the United States, it involved 3 different types of firearms and 173 volunteers who performed a total of 8,640 comparisons of both bullets and cartridge cases. The overall false positive error rate was estimated at below 1%. And below 1% for bullets and cartridge cases, respectfully. Do you guys understand what that means? That means that for the majority of every comparison that was performed, they were accurate. And the only time they got anything wrong was when they failed to make the comparison, which would have let possibly a guilty party go free. But they were able to compare accurately the majority of the 8,640 tests. So to ignore this evidence, why? Why are you doing that? You talk about not putting innocent people in prison. Well, right there, you're talking about letting guilty people out of prison by ignoring this. The one piece of solid information that you have in this case is being ignored. And I don't understand why. So you can scream ritualistic murder until your face is blue. It doesn't exclude Richard Allen. Any way that you slice it, he's involved. Based on what? Based on the only solid evidence in this case. You don't need the DNA. Well, the DNA could belong to another person, right? It could be, it could have been concealed by Richard Allen himself. But the fact is, he does not have an alibi. We know that he was there that day. And now we know that his bullet is at the crime scene. He is involved in this. If the girls were positioned in a certain way as part of a ritual, he's going to know why. Oh, well, he doesn't know these third-party suspects and he's not into that shit. How do you know that? Because if you're going to swear up and down that the evidence that you've seen about the crime scene and third-party suspects points to a ritualistic killing, well, guess what? The evidence points that he's involved in that. Even though there's no real proof. What's the proof? Oh, well, didn't you see the positioning and didn't you see what was on Brad Holder's Facebook? That's not real evidence. It's not even circumstantial evidence. If you can put Brad Holder at the trails that day, that's circumstantial evidence. Richard Allen being there at the trails that day, that's circumstantial evidence. Brad Holder having something on his Facebook that you think might be at the crime scene, that's not even circumstantial evidence. So let's go ahead and ignore the one piece of solid information, which is this bullet, which even the defense's experts agree came from Richard Allen's gun. We're going to ignore that. Ask yourself why. Just do me that favor. Why are you choosing to ignore that? Because it does not matter if Anthony Schatz was working hand in hand with Richard Allen. It does not matter if he was part of a ritualistic murder. It does not matter if he was a lone wolf. Because any way that you slice this, Richard Allen, they're going to prove that he was part of it. And the way that you're going to go ahead and explain it away is that there's a conspiracy with Jerry Holman and the investigators to tamper with evidence. I mean, that's a big deal. And if there was any evidence to prove that, I would stand with you 100%. But there's not. Criminality. How do we know for sure, according to Libreto, it was 2 inches in the ground? So you've chosen to listen to Libreto over Holman, who must back this up in court with facts and chain of custody. You have to ask yourself, T, why you're doing that? Libreto doesn't have to back up anything he's saying. Jerry Holman does. The entire case rests on that piece of evidence, that one piece. You have to ask yourself, why are you doing that? Why are you choosing to do that? Why are you choosing to ignore a scientific fact that will be proven? And we know that the defense experts agreed to that. And they were told, we don't need you anymore. We can't use you. And they're just lucky that Nick didn't decide to say, oh, well, you guys leaked the ex parte information, so we're going to pull them over as our experts as well. That way in court, we can talk about how they agreed with us, even though they're your experts. And he took an ethical stance and said, okay, I won't do that because we don't need to do that. So even the defense experts agreed that that bullet came from Richard Allen's gun. It was there less than 24 hours. There's no corrosion. There's no rust. There's none of that. All right, let me zip on down and see who we got joining us. A couple people I missed here. Road Dog just jumped in. What is being ignored? The bullet. Absolutely 100% the bullet. The same bullet that the defense expert agreed came out of Richard Allen's gun. That evidence. But yet everything else is, oh, well, what about this in the chain of custody? They're planting evidence and they're tampering with it. I just don't get it. It makes no sense to me. Absolutely dumbfounded. I'm telling you, we had this round on February 14th, 2017. It's been in a laboratory, and we've tested other guns. Their entire case is leaning on this one piece of evidence. You're telling me that they're going to tamper with that? Why? Humanimal says, do much of that diversion misinformation is from the not unraveling. No, it's not. It's from Richard Allen's defense team. It's kind of like when you trick your dog and you throw the ball over here to the left and then you hide it behind your back. There's just a whole group of people that went that way and they're looking for the ball. It's here. I know it's here. I saw him throw it. Yeah, Libredo's the same guy who said, I've never heard of Odinism before, but now that I looked at it, it's really scary. Like, come on, we need to follow the evidence. And the strongest piece of evidence is that bullet. To ignore that, it's irresponsible. But we all are entitled to our opinion. I just think we should ask ourselves why, if that's what we're doing. All right, we'll finish with this here. Oh, that's the wrong one. Sorry. Okay, understanding the concept of chain of custody and how it breaks. In criminal cases, the chain of custody refers to the timeline from when the police obtained the evidence until the prosecutor presented it in court. The sequence usually runs as follows: collection and identification. This refers to the time the law enforcement officer obtains the evidence of the crime, parts of it. The police can obtain evidence by collecting it from a crime scene or by receiving it from the victim or a witness. Tagging or labeling. Once the law officer collects the evidence, they must properly tag, label, or mark it, whichever is applicable. This typically includes the item description, collection date and location, and the collector's name, among others. Analysis and processing. During this process, forensic scientists analyze the evidence to confirm the substance, identify any left prints, or reconstruct the crime. Evidence storage and preservation. As the name suggests, evidence storage refers to the duration law enforcement seals and stores the evidence until it is time to present it to court. Presentation. This pertains to when the prosecutor presents the evidence during the trial, though sometimes the prosecutor only brings a copy to the court. If there are discrepancies in the evidence handling or unexplained changes in the physical evidence, it means that there is a breaking of the chain of custody. For instance, the records show that the evidence was missing for a certain period. However, law enforcement cannot prove who had the evidence at the time, which means that they can no longer vouch for the evidence authenticity. Thank you, Cindy. All right, guys, this will be our 5-minute warning. So if there's anything you want to add, if you want to jump ahead of the line, go ahead and shoot me an email, sleuthintuition@gmail.com. Those were the two pieces, the two topics I want to discuss. If Richard Allen has no connection to the third party suspects, does that exclude him? How could we possibly know if he has any connection? And then also the idea of the chain of custody on the bullet being questionable, right? That's a whole nother conspiracy theory. So you're going to say Richard Allen is possibly innocent based off of that? Guess we could consider that like a logical fallacy, right? Subrosa says, I think Rick chambered around in order to frighten the girls and forget, or just didn't care that he already had one in the chamber. And even if you think Richard Allen is not the bridge guy, doesn't matter. Any way that you slice this, he's involved. And even the defense team's own experts agree that that bullet came out of Richard Allen's gun. So unless he wants to come out and tell us who was using his gun, we can safely assume that it was him. Can we prove he's the guy on the bridge? No. Can we prove that he's the guy saying guys down the hill? No. Was he there that day? Yes. Does he have an alibi? Absolutely not. Will they prove that that bullet came from his gun? I believe yes, they will. Was the chain of custody good? Yes, because if it wasn't, we'd know about it. So you need to ask yourself, if you're supporting Richard Allen, why are you ignoring the one piece of actual evidence in this case? It's a simple question. And I've been asking this people on Twitter, people on Facebook, and some live streams today, and those were the answers. That the chain of custody on the bullet is questionable. And that no, Richard Allen is not, if third party suspects are involved, no, he's not connected to this crime because he's not connected to them. That's not logical. Yeah, David says, I think that's why the defense team hasn't mentioned too much about the chain of custody anymore, because they found it when they asked the state to direct them to the proper area of the files. Yeah, in the Franks memo, they just said, oh, well, up until this point, we've only received 3 photos. And they didn't talk about it being 2 inches in the ground. They didn't mention anything about that. They didn't mention corrosion, rust, or they found some old bullet. That is Doug Carter's one piece. It's that simple. And to ignore that, you're basically ignoring the one thing that puts Richard Allen at the crime scene. The one person who is actually being tied to this crime. Whether there was a ritualistic killing, whether you had Keegan Kline and his dad in a Jeep assisting and luring the girls there, whether you had some kind of sick snuff film, or Richard Allen was just there like he always was, and for whatever reason could not contain himself and panicked, killed the girls to keep them from telling, and cleaned off all the DNA the best that he could, leaving a mess of a crime scene behind. Doesn't matter. Any way that you slice it, that bullet is going to prove that he's there, and even Richard Allen's defense team's own experts agree to that. Welcome in, Veronica. Thank you, sub. I doubt it sees through, unless he was unaware that they could track it. Yep. So if you're curious about whether or not runes were left at the crime scene, or if the positioning of the girls had anything to do with the signature, or if there was a ritual that took place there, or if Keegan Klein was involved, you have but one person to ask. And that's Richard Allen. I'll see you guys next time.